Hello guys, welcome back to the new video. So in this video we are going to implement that remote mediator for our editorial feed images in our home screen. So with the help of that remote mediator from the paging library, we will cache those images in the local database. Then we will use those images in our UI. First thing, let's define the entity and DAO for our local database. So here in the data package and in this local package and then this entity package, let's create one more data class with the name Unsplash image entity. The fields of this Unsplash image entity will be exactly same like we specified in this favorite image entity. So let's copy this and use it here. And again we need to annotate this with entity annotation. And also we need to specify the table name. So again let's go to the constant file and use this constant in that entity, and also annotate this id with the primary key. Next thing, we need to specify the DAO. So here in this local package, let's create one more interface with the name editorial feed DAO. So let's create three simple functions. So these will be three functions for our editorial feed DAO. In the first function, we are getting everything from this image table with the help of this query. And in the next function, we are inserting the image with the help of this annotation. And here we are deleting all the images with this query. Next thing, let's also specify these two things in our database. So here we need to add the entity and also that DAO. Now we will use these entity and DAO in our remote mediators. So here in this paging package, let's create one more class with the name editorial feed remote mediator. And let's extend this with remote mediator. And here we need to specify this key 𝑠c_int and the value will be this unsplash image entity. And we need to override this load function. Here it is asking for experimental annotation. So let's opt in this. So here we need to specify how this remote mediator needs to load the data. So first thing, we need to get the response from that API. Let's go to the API service in this remote package. Here we need to modify this function. Here we can see with this endpoint we can provide these parameters. The page we need to retrieve and the number of items per page and this order by. So we will provide these two parameters. So we can get more than one pages of data. So let's copy these two parameters from here and use it here. Now let's go back to our remote mediator and here get both the API and that database. So here in this load function, first let's use the try catch block, and in this catch block, when we get any exception, then we will return this mediator result dot error. So here first thing, let's get the data from that API. So in this per page, I have used that constant we created in that constant file. So 10 items per page we need. To provide this page number, we need to calculate what's the current page we are browsing. So here we need to calculate this. Let's use this val current page, and then with this when block we have this load type, and here let's press alt enter and add remaining branches. We have these three blocks: refresh, prepend and append, and we can provide the current page from this calculated value here. First of all, what are these three load types? First, we have this load type dot refresh. This load type is used when the data is being loaded for the first time or when the entire dataset is being refreshed. And next we have this prepend. This is used for loading data before the current dataset. And next we have this append. This is used for loading data after the current dataset. So when the data will be refreshed, then we will provide the current page as the starting page. So here let's create a constant and use this starting page index here. Next, for these prepend and append, we are going to use remote keys. We will keep those remote keys in our local database. With the help of those keys, we can decide which will be the next page and which will be the previous page. So first thing, in our entity package, let's create one more data class with the name Unsplash remote keys. So here we will keep the ID as the string type and then previous page and the next page. And this ID needs to be annotated with this primary key. And for accessing this remote keys entity, we need to create some function in the editorial feed DAO. So after this, let me create three more functions. We can copy these functions and those three will be quite similar. So these three will be our DAO functions for these remote keys. First one, we will get the remote key where we will provide the ID, and with the matching ID it will give us the remote key. And next we will insert all the remote keys with this function. And last we have this function to delete all remote keys. Next thing, let's also specify this remote key entities here. And in our remote mediator, now we will calculate these prepend and append value. First thing, in this prepend block, let's use this. So here we need to create a new function so we can get the remote key for the first item. Here let's press alt enter and create function, and the return type will be unsplash remote keys of type nullable. So here how we are going to calculate. First, let's use this return keyword with state dot pages. We will get all the pages and then we will take first or null. And here we will check if the data is not empty. Then we will take that data, and from that data we will take the first or null value. And if this is not null, then we will use that let block, and here we will get the unsplash image, and we will use that unsplash image to get the remote key with the ID we have in this unsplash key, like this. And in the same manner, let's calculate remote key for the last item. This time we need to use this last or null. So let's use these two functions in our prepend and append block. Now first we need to calculate the previous page. So here let's use this previous page, and we have this remote keys, and then we will take the from it. If the previous page is null, then we will return from this remote mediator with this mediator result dot success, and here we need to provide this end of pagination reached true. And in the same way, let's copy this and use it here. And this time we need this next page. So here we will check if that next page is not null, then we will result this next page. If this is null, then we will return from this remote mediator with the success. This is because if the next page is null, then we have reached the bottom. And in the similar way, if the previous page is null, it means we have reached to the top. Now next thing here, first let's also use this end of paginations reached, and this will be if the response is empty. Now we need to use this database dot with transaction. So what this with transaction function is? In Room, this with transaction is a helpful method for executing a set of database operation within a single transaction. This ensures that all the operations are performed atomically, meaning that either all the operations complete successfully or none of them do. This is essential for maintaining data integrity, especially when performing multiple related operations that needs to be treated as a single unit. So first thing we will check if this load type is refreshed, then we need to clear our local database. So here we will say editorial feed DAO dot delete all editorial feed images, and also we need to delete all the keys. So here again let's use this delete all remote keys, and after this we need to call two more functions. First this insert all remote keys, and then this editorial feed DAO dot insert editorial feed images. So these are the four functions which needs to be performed atomically. Here in the last we can provide the return block with success case. Next thing we need to provide this remote keys. First let's create remote keys here. We will generate those remote keys from this response. So here we will use this map function. So we will get those Unsplash image TTOs, and from that we will take out that Unsplash remote keys, and here we need to use the ID. So ID will be this Unsplash image TTO dot ID, and we need to use the previous page and then this next page. So these previous page and next page let's create here. So here if we are on the current page, then the previous page will be null, and current page is not 1, it means we need to subtract 1 from the current page. For the next page, if we have reached to the pagination end, then the next page will be null, otherwise we will add the 1 to this current page. So here we can use these two values. We need to make this next page also nullable. So let's use this null. Now we can provide this remote key here. Now to insert these editorial feed images, we need to map this response of Unsplash image TTO to the Unsplash image entity. So let's create one more mapper function in our mappers file. Let's copy this one. This mapper function will also be on this Unsplash image TTO, but the name will be to entity, and the return type will be Unsplash image entity. Everything else will be exactly same. This is because that Unsplash image and this Unsplash image entity is very similar. Now let's also create one more mapper function to the list of these. Again we can copy this function and rename it to entity list, and this will return us this Unsplash image entity. So here we can use this to entity, and this function we will use here. So now our remote mediator function is ready. Next thing, let's go to our repository interface in the domain package, and the return type of this editorial feed images will not be simple list but will be flow of paging data. And let's go to the implementation of this, and here again let's change it to the flow of paging data. And here again we need to use this pager, so let's use this, and the paging source will be that function in our DAO. First let me create one more value for editorial images and use it here. And here one more thing we also need to provide is this remote mediator, because we are also using remote mediator for this editorial feed images. So here our remote mediator will be this editorial feed remote mediator which we created. Now this is giving error. So again we need to use a mapper function to convert this entity to the Unsplash images. So here let's go to our mapper class, copy this one and use it here. So this time we will use this for Unsplash image entity, and the return type will be Unsplash image. So we can use this to domain model. So here again we need to use this map function. We will get the paging data. We will map this paging data to that Unsplash image with the help of that mapper function. Now this is giving error for this annotation. Let's cut from here and use here. Now go to our home view model, and here we have these get images function. But now this is not how we are going to get these images. So let's remove all this. These images we will get in the similar way as we get those favorite images. So let's go to our favorites view model and copy these three functions and use it here. This function will be exactly same, and this one also, but this needs to be changed. So here let's use simply images. Let's use this get editorial feed images. This is giving error because this is saying that it is using the suspend modifier. So again let's go to our interface. Here let's remove this suspend modifier because we are already using this flow as the return, and also from this implementation. Now it won't give error anymore. Now we need to use these images in our screen. So let's go to our home screen, and this part let's remove this vertical grid and copy the code from that favorite images screen. These three things. So let's create some parameters here. We will provide these three things from the nav graph. So let's use these images here. Now let's go to our nav graph, and here the images we will get from that view model. Now let's run our app and see. So here we are getting the error through that snack bar. This is because we have changed our database. We have added two entities and one DAO also. Let's minimize this. So we need to provide the migration strategy, but there is a simple way. We can simply uninstall the app from the phone and install a fresh app. So the database will be fresh new. I have uninstalled it. Let me run it again. So here we have our app. So let's scroll down. So we can see we are not loading more than 10 images. So let me see the code first. So I checked the code. Let's go to this remote mediator. In this remote mediator, let's put that logs. Now let's run our app again. So here, let's open the logcat and we can see the log. It is saying that it cannot access the database on the main thread. So this error is generally when we forget to use the suspend modifier. So here I checked the code and in our editorial feed DAO, this is the function we need to use this suspend modifier. So now we can run our app again. Now these functions needs to be called from that suspend. So let's use this suspend keywords here also. So let's run it again. So here we have our app. So first let me open this. Still we are unable to load more than 10 images. So let me see the code again. But this time we are not getting any error. And also this end of pagination reached is false. Here I looked into the code, I put these logs to know the remote keys and I found out that this function is not returning the actual key. Let's press Ctrl B and this function is using the function from the editorial feed DAO. So let's press Ctrl B. In this function I wrongly use this images table, but this needs to be remote keys table. So here this was the issue. Now let me run this app again. Still we are not getting those images. So let me check the logs. Again this is returning this null as the remote key. So let me check the code again. I checked the code, there was no issue, but when I restarted the app again, so it was working fine. Let me first uninstall this app and install it again, so we can get more clarity on how this remote mediator is working. So here we have our app. Now let me go to the app inspection. Here we have these three tables. We will focus on this image table and this remote keys, and let's put these live updates. First we have these 10 items. So let me scroll down. We are not getting the correct behavior. So let me minimize this and stop the app inspection. And here Instead of simply giving this starting page index, we also need to calculate the value closest to the current position. I will paste some code. So this is the function we are going to use to know the current position. And here let's use this code. And this end of pagination reached, we will check with this remote keys is not null. Now let me run this app again. So right now we have these 36 images in our local database. This has cached these images. So when we scroll down, so here we will get these images. But now we have scrolled down further, so now it has been loaded few more images. 52 images like this. So if we scroll further, then it has loaded further more images. And next when we go to this remote key, so here it is keeping these remote keys for previous page and the next page. Now let's close the app and this time turn off internet. And when we open the app, so here we still can see those images because these images has been cached in the local database with the help of that remote mediator. So we can see all those images. Now these are not loaded, so these are not accessible. And when we open the internet, now we can get those images also. So we can see our app is working perfectly fine. So this was all for this Image Vista application. Now we have completed our application. If I found out any bugs or issues or any improvement, then I will also add some more videos in this playlist. If you found these videos helpful, like the videos and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.